Man, but no, that I think that's super dope, man. And I think that's needed honestly, in any college or like university, like having someone who's in charge of the curriculum and structuring the course who actually does this, who actually creates for music for media, because I feel like with your perspective, man, they're able to get a deeper level of insight versus what I hear a lot of students. They're like, yeah, like they mentioned it, but they just glossed over it. We didn't really know exactly how to approach it. It was just like, hey, here's a thing.
Yeah, and Full Sail actually encourages that. Full Sail knows about 52 Qs. Like it's not like some side hustle that I'm trying to, I hope they don't, it's not a moonlighting gig or anything. And they are helping me go to LA, right?
That's
and
awesome.
so they're letting me go to LA, and we're covering my classes. I'm not having to burn vacation days because they recognize the value. And specifically, that's one of the things that Full Sail advertises, is you are learning from industry professionals.
Yep.
And we also have the advantage of attracting non-traditional school students, right? Students who aren't wanting the 17-week semester box. But that also means that since our classes are 1 month each, and this isn't like an ad, but we can change. Like we're talking about possibly putting Ableton in our curriculum, and we can do that. And we don't necessarily have to run it up to the Board of Regents or anything. We don't have to get it passed through the state of Florida. And if there's an update to a piece of software, then we get to talk about it because we're only 4 weeks away from a curriculum change. And so that's really good. The challenge of that is the classes move way fast. Like I had 17 weeks to learn music theory. Some of these students, they have 4 weeks to learn it. Wow. And it can be really tough.
Yeah.
But it also prepares them. And in my class, they write 3 Qs. The first Q they write in 3 days.
Wow.
And some of them flip out because it might take 3 months for them to write a song. But when I explain the artisan mentality, and when I help them understand that what we're doing isn't art, like with a capital A, and understanding that takes the pressure of creativity. Because if you're looking at a blank DAW and you think every time I put my hands on a keyboard, it has to be the absolute pinnacle of my musical expression, and if it's not, then I have somehow failed, then you will live your entire life feeling like a failure. But if you're like, I'm going to write a hip hop dramedy cue with some plucky strings, it's going to be unique. It doesn't need to break any kind of mold, because the industry doesn't expect that. When you like, and I'll prove it to you, and I'll prove it to your listeners. And again, I know I'm all over the place here. You get me.
I love it, dude.
Slipping into lecture mode, man. Okay, so I'll prove it to you. Imagine a scene from a cooking show. And in that cooking show, there is a countdown in the bottom right-hand corner, and there's some angry British man swearing at everybody, and there are pots and pans, something's on fire. Can you, in your mind's ear, hear the music that should be playing there?
Oh, yeah. It's tense.
Yeah. Because we are culturally programmed to expect and respond to certain types of musical cues. And so when we want something that's funny and plucky, and the characters are comedically attempting to solve a problem, we know what that music should sound like. If an investigator is putting the clues together and there's literally like a magnifying glass, we know what that music should sound like. If there is a truck and it's all dusty and somebody's puts their foot out and you see it, and we know what that music should sound like. And so there's cultural expectations that we can leverage and lean on, not as a way to be lazy, but as a way to shortcut the process.
Today's video is brought to you by TV Placement Mastery. This is my high-level coaching program for producers to fast-track you to your first licensing deal within 90 days. Now, this is an invite-only program, so you have to apply, and I only work with a few producers at a time. So just go to tvplacementmastery.com or click the link in the description to apply. I love that, because it's so true, man. I was talking to a student in a coaching group, and he had mentioned, because I had mentioned like there's days like I can knock out like 3 cues in a day, and he was just like trying to figure out like, man, how do you do it? And like a big part of that was obviously optimization, having sessions and templates and stuff just ready to go, but also detaching myself from believing like this has to be the most epic track I've ever made like to date. It's just, no, here's the template, here's the formula, follow the formula, use the strings, the brass, the whatever, depending on what kind of track you're making, make it around this length, mix it, master it, send it off, forget about it, do it again.
Yeah, I am like, I love metaphors. I think in metaphors and I teach in metaphors. So here's another metaphor for you. We are short order cooks at a Waffle House. And I don't mean that to disparage Waffle House or our career, because if you show up at a Waffle House on a Saturday or Sunday morning, the line is out the door, right?
Seriously,
Waffle houses aren't going out of business. But somebody comes in the door, they order something, they give it to the wait staff, and the wait staff writes it down. Oh, you want a dramedy cue with a side of hip hop, maybe 808s, hold the stutter hats. They put it in the window, and I, the cook, I just pull it down. I'm like, oh, I know this recipe, right? I get to make it, but the ingredients I have on hand. I know where everything is in my pantry, in my library, in my patch library, and I just whip it up and put it in the window, and the wait staff, the publishers, take it and give it to the clients, the editors. And that's the gig. It's not sexy. This is not a sexy industry. Nobody will ever know your name, just like nobody ever thinks about the chef who whipped up the scrambled egg frittata the last time you were at a Waffle House. But I bet if you had a good time there, I bet if you met your wife at a Waffle House, this is so autobiographical. My wife and I used to work third shift at American Express, and the only place that was open at 2 a.m. for our quote unquote lunch break was Waffle House. And I have very fine of like eating breakfast at 2 a.m, doing phone banks for American Express.
Yeah.
But I couldn't begin to tell you who took my order or who cooked it. But the food was important, and it just depressurizes what we're doing, not in a way that makes it less important, not in a way that diminishes that it needs to be good, because artisans are excellent at that at their craft. If you don't believe me, go to a farmer's market and go buy some artisan bread. Go buy an artisan cookie that's $8, and you're like, oh my, who's buying an $8 cookie? How dare you? And then you take a bite, you're like, oh, I get it. And then you realize that the artisan baker milled their own flour, or they have happy goats, and so they made their own butter, or they went to culinary school. And so from our experience, this is the best cookie I've ever had. But from the baker's experience, they wake up, they crank out a bunch of cookies, they trot it out to a cart and sit there and sweat their butt off on a hot Saturday morning, sitting there watching everybody go by, and whatever sells, they're going to make more of next week. And whatever doesn't sell, even if it's their favorite cookie, if it doesn't sell, they're not going to make it. They might make it for themselves. They might put their cookie on spot, but they're not going to try to get somebody to buy it because nobody's buying.
You said so much in that analogy. I think we should just all sign up for whatever class Dave has.